Our guest tonight is Jon Rappoport of NoMoreFakeNews.com. He's going to be talking to us about how pharmaceutical companies are in bed with the FDA. Thanks for joining us, Jon.
Good to be here.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about this article you sent us. It says, shock, comparing deaths from medical drugs, vitamins, and all U.S. wars. Particularly, you have many good things in here, but if we flip a few pages, scroll down a little bit, we'll see the summing up. And I see here no deaths from vitamins in 2011. Also, over 100,000 deaths every year from pharmaceutical drugs. So can you go through us and hit the high points?
Well, sure. That's one of the high points. Virtually no deaths from vitamins, and yet the FDA is always taking pot shots at vitamins and trying to restrict consumer access to them. But meanwhile, the FDA is certifying as safe and effective every year medical drugs that kill at a minimum 106,000 Americans every year, which is well over 1 million Americans per decade. And then referencing another study, a famous study, Barbara Starfield, in the Journal of the American Medical Association in the year 2000, she finds that the medical system in America kills 225,000 people a year. And then I did a little research and added up the total number of military casualties, deaths, that is, in wars since the U.S. Revolutionary War, starting in 1775 to the present. We get 1,312,612 military deaths in all of those wars put together. But you can take any 10-year period of modern medical care in America, and you will find that the medical system kills 2,250,000 Americans.
And that's something that they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know the dangers of these drugs, because we see them all the time. You can't watch TV for more than 10 minutes on any channel, except, you know, when you're watching the InfoWars Nightly News on PrisonPlanet.tv, without seeing all of these ads for these pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of suppression to keep these figures from the public, because if they were released, especially in the comparative form that I just did now, the pillars of the whole medical system would collapse, I mean, overnight. And you would have not only investigations, but a public uproar, because people would realize that they're getting poisoned to death by the millions, far more. I mean, it isn't even close what happens in wars. So this is basically chemical warfare, what we're talking about at home here in the U.S., being launched on a continuous basis by the U.S. medical system.
And when you speak of the wars, we think about the troops who come back and they're on all these psychotropic drugs. They come back with suicidal thoughts. They come back depressed, willing to do harm to themselves and sometimes even to others. Yes,
that's another facet of the whole thing. Going back roughly 14 years, if you wanted to get into the military and you had a history of any psychiatric drug usage, you would be ruled out. You couldn't get in, and that even included Ritalin. Now, everything has been completely turned around thanks to the influence of the pharmaceutical industry. Now, soldiers go out there and they are given in their battlefield packs all kinds of antidepressant pills that cause people to commit suicide and violence to others, including homicide. And soldiers are dosing themselves out on the battlefield. And so, as you say, they come home and they are in a completely frayed state of mind, liable to do anything, which of course is then blamed on, quote, PTSD or mental illness. But really, in most cases, it's the drugs. It's the medical drugs.
Exactly, exactly. And you also pointed our attention to another article, pharmaceutical firms paid to attend meetings, panels that advise the FDA. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, yet a new revelation involving the influence of pharmaceutical money in U.S. government decisions on drugs. Now, we're talking about some of the most severe, debilitating drugs, painkillers like OxyContin, Vicodin, Percocet, morphine. Basically, what the pharmaceutical business is trying to do is to persuade the government and the public and the press that these drugs are really not all that harmful. They just don't happen to have all those horrible side effects that we all know they do, including making people into zombies. And so they want to assure that the FDA, which is responsible for all the literature on drugs and approving them, doesn't go too far in warning people about the dangers of these painkillers. So there have been these private conferences between the FDA and other U.S. health agency people, and now the pharmaceutical industry has gotten in on these by invitation, paying $25,000 per person
Wow.
to attend these private meetings and to thereby exert influence over the FDA to make sure that everybody thinks these drugs are just fine and they're not horrendous. They don't destroy people's minds and bodies. No, it's all okay, and let the money roll into the drug companies. So that was this morning's revelation, and it's just a tiny piece of the puzzle because in my research and research of many other reporters, we know that pharmaceutical money has played a tremendous role in influencing the FDA to make decisions to release dangerous, harmful, killer medical drugs on the public for a very, very long time now.
And we see this, Mr. Rappoport, I want to get your comment on this, because we always see these children in the school system. You know, the kids, they go to foster homes, or maybe they bring their Nerf gun to school. Now little Johnny needs these pills, little Susie needs these pills. Can you talk a little bit about the medicating our children from a very early age?
This is maybe the most hideous of all, because you're now seeing kids that are being given antidepressants at age 4 or even younger in some cases. I mean, the idea that you're going to diagnose a very small child with clinical depression and you're going to give them killer drugs like Prozac, Paxil, and Zoloft, which produce unpredictable changes in brain chemistry, and like I said earlier, can cause people to be provoked into violent action, suicide, all kinds of horrible actions. These kids are now being diagnosed, and the schools play a large role in it because the teachers want to think of themselves as sort of medical assistants. Oh, well, we spotted little Jimmy here, and he's wiggling his foot in class, so he probably has ADHD, and I have to refer him to the counselor, and then before you know it, the kid's sitting in front of a psychiatrist who says, yes, you have ADHD, we're going to give you Ritalin, which is a form of speed, amphetamines, and now after 2 months on this, the kid falls into a kind of a speed crash, depression, back to the doctor, the psychiatrist, who says, oh, we have a new condition, clinical depression, now it's got to be Prozac, and now the kid's brain is ripped even further apart.
Exactly. Now, Mr. Rappoport, our time is short, so can you give us your final thoughts?
The nation is being assaulted with these medical drugs. It is indeed, and I'm not exaggerating, chemical warfare. The press is not reporting it sufficiently, not even a little bit. People have to be aware of what these drugs are doing to them and their families, and especially their children. They're everywhere. They're supported by the government and by the corrupt FDA, which is letting these drugs on the market when they kill over 2 million people, or in this case, the pharmaceutical drugs, over 1 million people per decade in the United States, which is a holocaust.
All right, Jon Rappoport, NoMoreFakeNews.com. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.